Hello, welcome to Deep into a Caribbean Book. I am Yarixa Barbosa, a reading lover. In today's episode, we will talk about the book Corentin Thunder by Guyanese writer Edgar Mittelholzer. And we will have a special guest, a teacher, writer, an actor in television, film, and on stage in Canada and the United States, Mr. Marc Gomez, of Guyanese origin, and he is passionate about Corentin Thunder. I came to know about Edgar Mittelholzer when, in a conversation with my husband, he mentioned that many years ago, while living in London, he planned to travel to the Caribbean. He entered to a bookstore specializing in books by Caribbean authors. His father was also Guyanese, so he chose Mittelholzer. He enjoyed the plot and shared it with his brothers because they already heard much of its content from his father's own youth experiences in Guyana. So I devote myself to the online research of Edgar Mittelholzer and learned that he was the first novelist from the West Indies region, and I discovered Marc Gomez, who I saw in a YouTube video presenting his film project Corentin Thunder, for which he wrote the screenplay to potential investors. Gomez himself, as the project's founder, he will give us an update, and besides, we will have the pleasure of listening to him read one or another chapter of this brilliant story. So now let's begin with our chosen author. Edgar Mittelholzer was born in British Guyana on December 1909 and committed suicide in England on May 1965. A suicide foreshadowed in several of his novels. Mittelholzer encompassed more than one race, with ancestry from Switzerland, Germany, France, Great Britain, and Africa. During these times of youth, his points of view reflected the society's middle-class colonial environment. According to his autobiography, A Swarthy Boy, written in 1963, he was the eldest of 4 children. The dark one, at whom his father, William Austin, was always grumbling or frowning, while his mother allowed his soft hair to grow as long as girls, as thought to emphasize his European ancestry. In the article Edgar Mittelholzer, The Dark One, the site of Caribbean Beat magazine, they mention this. Race, racism, and neurosis appear to have filled Mittelholzer's early colonial years. Family life was gentle and repressed. He had few friends. He took refuge in reading and writing from an early age and kept voluminous diaries while bombarding London magazines and publishers with short stories. Nearly all his approaches met with rebuff, as in the 1920s and 1930s, the idea of Caribbean fiction was as yet unknown. There is a doctoral thesis by Juanita and West Maas titled Edgar Mittelholzer and the Shaping of His Novel. In there, she said, Mittelholzer has been recognized for being the first professional novelist to emerge from the English-speaking Caribbean, partially made possible by his productivity. His publication rate is 21 novels in the space of 15 years. Well, many reviewers remain unaware that several of Mittelholzer's novels languish unpublished. It should be noted that most of his Caribbean set novels date back in one way or another to the pre-1950s period. In the opinion of Michael Hawkes, in the article A Companion to West Indian Literature, an extract from Wikipedia says, Mittelholzer is certainly the most prolific novelist to be produced by the Caribbean. The earliest novelist from the West Indian region to establish himself in Europe and gain a significant European readership. There is a website specializing in Caribbean and Black British writing publications, Pipal 3 Press, in which you can find chronological information about his books. So, moment to dip into the book. On the back of the book, we read that when Edgar Mittelholzer was 29 years old and living in the small Guyanese coastal town of New Amsterdam, doing odd jobs for the customs, checking drums of petrol offload from schooners, and even acting as cinema inspector at a frosty little cinema. So in this period, we can read that at the beginning, it was the first published novel that explored peasant life in Guyana with racial tension and passion set in rural areas of the country. In the first pages of Corentin Thunder, you can read the introduction. The introduction by Louis James. In here, Louis James from the University of Kent at Canterbury, formerly University College of the West Indies. There are details about the journey that Mittelholzer had to face until finally publishing this excellent novel. The story of Corentin Thunder is about the life of immigrants from India in the British Caribbean colonies. Corentin is on the coast, and Mittelholzer creates the character Rangolal. That's one of the key protagonists of the story, and he is a cattle minder in this region of Guyana, as well as his two daughters. The book title has to do with hints that something bad is to happen. The constant echoing, distant thunder with threatening events. So 3 generations of this family respect traditions and care about what others could say of them. Rangolal is a coolie of East India or East Indian descent who came over first in 1889 as an indentured servant until he bought himself out and could establish a small bit of land and some cows. It was the only British colony on the mainland of South America. Rangolal is proud of his children from 2 marriages, particularly the daughter of his first marriage, who is married to a well-to-do white planter. They are literally dirt poor, having only 1 set of clothes, living in a mud hut, and earning money by selling milk from their cows. Despite their very tough existence, they are basically happy. Their life revolves, stashes away every shilling into a secret hoard. But their apparently mundane existence soon becomes a gripping story as a jealous neighbor and the mentioned playboy mixed race relative enter the story, and it reached an exciting climax. You should read this psychological drama to know what will happen at the end. The enjoyment of Quarantine Thunder is learning about their daily life. The narrative is written in Creole. In many dialogues, do not disconnect from what they are saying, but put you in a smile when you are reading. I want to just mention what it says here, Louis James. It says about the story it's about, but specifically the way that he wrote. You just go deep and think how they speak. For example, they says Mittelholzer uses the spoken word very skillfully, set against the standard English of the novel. His use of Creole gives definition and add depth to the peasants who use it. So the enjoyment and the narrative is definitely very, very interesting, and that invites you to read it. You feel that you, as well, when you read the book, you feel that you have seen many landscapes. What it gives you the desire to visit and know the splendor of Guyana. Although People Tree Press reissue the novel, it is not very well known. So the team of Deep into a Caribbean Book, along with the support of Mr. Mark Gomez, would like to contribute to turn this around and get many interested in reading Quarantine Thunder, to provide a wonderful perspective on reading Caribbean literature. So we finished the first part of the program. Let's have a break, and soon after, welcome to the second half to our special guest, Mark Gomez, who will not only talk about his film project called Quarantine Thunder, but read excerpts from the novel of Edgar Mittelholzer. We will be right back soon. Welcome back to the second half of the program, Deep into a Caribbean Book. We started this program by telling you about Corentin Thunder by Edgar Mittelholzer. Mr. Mark Gomez has agreed to be part of this program dedicated to the great Guyanese writer. As I told you earlier, his presence is due to the fact that he is an enthusiast about the book Corentin Thunder. And the idea of motivating readers to get to know the Caribbean books is followed by him. Mark Gomez is a well-known TV, film, and on-stage actor in Canada and the United States. Lindsay? welcome back to Deep into a Caribbean Book. We apologize because we was having technical problems. So I was saying that Mark Gomez is well-known TV, film, and stage actor in Canada and in the United States. He was born in Georgetown, Guyana. Currently, Gomez is assistant professor at the Theater Arts Acting Department of Ithaca College in New York. In 2009, he received a Cinematic and Entrepreneurship Motivation Award, CEMA, supported by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, for his screenplay adaptation of Quarantine Thunder. The award was presented to a select group of filmmakers whose work emerged as voices in Caribbean cinema. So welcome, Mark Gomez. It's a pleasure to have you in Deep into a Caribbean Book. Please, could you tell the audience how you were first introduced to Quarantine Thunder by Edgar Mittelholzer?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And certainly it's a wonderful book to introduce to your audience. My father introduced me to the book. When we emigrated to Canada in 1971, my dad brought, he brought some things from Guyana with him. And when I was in my early teens, we were living in Canada, he gave me the novel and he said, this is one of the things that I took with me. In fact, it's dated the day that we left Guyana, March 16, 1971, actually the day after.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that now.
That's nice, yes.
Yes, I was, my father introduced me to the book, and I've had an interesting journey with it. As a young person reading the book, he gave it to me in 1971, I didn't actually read it probably until the 80s. And even then, as a young person, I found difficulty connecting with some of the language and some of the themes. It took me a couple of readings before I actually fell in love with the book, and then probably another 10 years after that before I thought that I would try to make a screenplay adaptation of it.
Wow, amazing. Well, that's why you really are very interesting in the book. So, now tell me, why do you feel the book is important for readers who have an interest in Caribbean writers?
Well, you mentioned early on in your introduction of the book and Mittelholzer, it was groundbreaking in many ways, and I think it's useful to understand why it was groundbreaking. Beyond his quest to get the book published, which was a fascinating story in itself.
Yeah.
But we have to realize that at that time, nobody was writing. There's certainly writers from the Caribbean. And at that point, Guyana was still a colony. Great Britain didn't expect writers to be expressing the kinds of stories that Mittelholzer was writing, which were stories of the people, of the land. And so those, you have to put it into context in terms of the time that the book comes out of, that it was not seen as something that would be worth reading, that no one would want to know about. so poetically and strongly, not just, I mean, the book is quite poetic, but it has a strong narrative, and it's also true to the characters. By that I mean that none of the characters are romanticized. You see them for all their beauty, for all their faults, and he offers the reader an opportunity to judge for themselves. There's no clear cut hero in the book.
No, that's true.
Which was an interesting project for me in rewriting in writing the screenplay, because screenplays operate differently. And so I actually centered the book on the younger sister, Katri, who was not centered in the book. The book more leads toward her older sister, Bina,
Yes.
and also Jeffrey, the man, the young man that their half-brother, in a way, who she has an affair with, but from a different point. So yeah, and so that was a decision that I made early on to kind of reframe the story through the lens of this young woman, and wanting something bigger for her life.
Yes, but if you choose her as the main protagonist in your film, it means that you choose those a lot of action in terms of what the way she handled every situation in the book, and her sense of humor and everything that, and she is in contact with everyone. It looks like after Langolal, she is the second one, as to say something. I say please.
You're absolutely right, and to me that was the thing that always got me.
Yes, definitely, and of course, you as an actor, I'm just waiting this moment to listen to you from you some parts of the book. I really it's your decision which one you will read for us, but I'm fascinated for those one a kind of Creole that the way those dialogues, I'm excited to listen to, and I'm sure people in this program will be interesting as well.
Well, I picked a couple of sections. You know, you have to be a little careful with the Creole. I mean, it's written as such. It's one thing to interpret it in the book. You know, we have to be clear that it's not objectified in a way. I mean, it is the language that they are speaking, that we speak as, and the characters. Some of the characters in the book are from different backgrounds. So I just want to be sure that it's not something that is it's just exoticized the dialect. But I think that readers in the Caribbean will appreciate it to hear it. I know we always, different islands and different countries in the Caribbean, we always make fun of each other's dialects and accents, sounds. We all have a different way of those of us in the English-speaking Caribbean have a different way of sounding as we speak English, and each of them are very unique. Anyway, so perhaps I'll read a passage. That was Stimpy and maybe about the girls. So this is in the last third of the book. I don't know if Bina has been secretly contracted a lawyer, a very expensive
Yeah.
lawyer, to get her lover on the murder charge. And she's been traveling to Georgetown from New Amsterdam, where the current team is. You have to take a ferry. In those days, there's a bridge now, but in those days you had to take a ferry to get from New Amsterdam to Georgetown. And she's been traveling back and forth.
Okay.
And she has just come back from one of her trips.
Okay.
So I'll just start. Katri saw Bina emerge from the canal and come towards the mud house. Ramgalal was squatting near the door. He saw her too. He said in some surprise, Betty, like you take laid back. You take care you don't get cold. She gave a laugh. No, me don't get cold. She came to where Katri sat by the fireplace and took up a rice bag that lay on the ground. A drop of water from her hair fell on Katri's foot, and the sudden chill made Katri shiver. But it was a shiver that somehow seemed not to have been caused by the chill, but by some secret fear that had crawled over her skin at Bina's approach. The twilight had grown deep now. The wind had died down to a hum. The northern and western parts of the sky were clear, but overhead, in the south and east along the roads, of small gray clouds like sheep could be seen hovering high up in a still, peaceful array. Low above the southern horizon, it was very dark. A little gray monster squatted there, and with one long claw stretched upwards towards where the orange tongues of sunset had a while ago flared, as though it were trying to feel its way into the pale yellow light, and the sun had left in the west. Very deathly it looked, Katri, though in a way rather pitiful, as if it were asking people not to think too badly of it, because it looked so ugly. Stop there.
Yeah, nice. Very, yes, it's a poem.
One of the features of the book, and one of the reasons that I think it still lives today.
Really?
Mendelhausen was very interested in the weather, in meteorological events, and he used them in many ways to craft the narrative and to help define some of the characters. Throughout the book, there are very specific and ornate descriptions of the weather, of the atmosphere, of the color of the sky, of the ground,
Yes.
the water, and the way those things affected the people, the characters.
Yes.
Which is one of the strengths, why the book is really quite powerful, and it points attention to his the specificity of his eye in being able to write and what he was interested in, which was about the people in the land and the land in the people.
Yes, that's what I mentioned before. When you are reading the book, because the way that he describes and the scenery is so nice, even without all the story, all the situations around sometimes are chaos, but always for me, I imagine always Guyana. As you know, as Venezuelan, Guyana is border. Yes, we have similar. Yes, of course. On the south, we have the same forest, same colors, the same river colors. So very, very intense, very passionate. The description. and that's the life in that area. Definitely, that's the life in Guyana.
Yeah.
My
You talked about the detailed, the many notebooks that he had, the detailed notes that he took. Many of those notes were about meteorology. Many of those notes were about the colors, were about the sky, were about the water that he was taking for years as a young man.
Yes.
And then they found their way into this first book.
So returning to your project for a film, tell me, please, because as soon as we finish this program, I'm sure people will get more interested in the story. I just would like to see the. Of course, always is better to read a book, but a story in a film will be amazing. And after, I can say, I know the director of that film.
Well, we'll have to keep our fingers crossed to see if that is yet to pass. It's been many years. Making an independent film is an uphill battle at the best of times. But the screenplay is strong, and there has been interest over the years, both in Guyana and in Canada, not so much in the United States. Although I spoke with several people on the East Coast in New York, and there was a lot of interest. But very difficult to make. Filmmaking has become even more expensive in the time between when I was, actively working to put the film together in the 2010s, 20-teens, and but we're always every few years somebody comes along and is interested in reviving the possibility of the film.
Yeah.
So, keep our fingers crossed. We'll see what will happen.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Something I would like to know. Do you, as a teacher at the private college, did you talk to your students about Caribbean writers? Did you mention once about your Guyanese author?
Yes. I always frame my work as a teacher in terms of my background and in terms of my experiences. And so yes, they hear little bits of my background from Guyana, and I do my best to introduce them to Caribbean writers, whenever possible.
The life of Edgar Mittelholzer is it was short but very intense. No, the way that he showed his trauma and the difficulties to identify himself between the West Indies and Europe, and with the relation with his parents. Is reflected in any of the books. And I only read Quarantine Thunder, but now I have with me A Morning at the Office. And I read the synopsis, and it's really good. It's everything. It happens in one day at the office, from early in the morning until the end of the working hours, and it's very ingenious. It's really good. What do you think about him? Imagine that we have in front of us a Mittelholzer. What you could say to him? What would you like to know about him that you didn't know?
One always wants to ask a writer where they get their influences from. What was on their mind when they set out to write a story. What is it that they hope that the audience would take away? Did he ever expect that this first novel would reach the audiences that it did. You know, you said, as you said, and you talked about his life, the way it, you know, a very charismatic figure, but seemingly troubled, although it's difficult to interpret those things from the outside. Yeah, and he spoke a lot about, you know, grappling with his past, grappling with the different threads of his background. We can play amateur psychologist and you know, think that perhaps, you know, maybe there was guilt, maybe there was some shame in you know, these things are difficult to talk about. We, as particularly in Guyana, all of the Caribbean, you know, we're a mixed people. We're a people of many races.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
It is that one term why we are as profound as we are, as beautiful as we are, if I could say that.
Yeah.
And something that we all to grapple with that just became our there are strands of yourness. And you know, he was important with that. And he was grappling with that in different ways and for better and for worse. Yeah.
Mark, before we finish, could you please read one more paragraph, any other that you really love from the book? Okay.
So we could finish if you wished. I could read another passage
Yes.
from the book.
Yes, please.
You know, there's so many interesting chapters.
Okay, and listen to you, Mark.
No rain fell during the night. The sheets of stratus cloud grew thinner and thinner, and the stars, one by one, came out, winking mistily at first, and then brighter and brighter, and more plentifully. By midnight, not even a tiny wisp or rag of cloud could be seen anywhere one way. The sky had a purple tinge, cool and rather sinister, as though it were made of dark blue glass, and there might be a belladonna behind it. Even the stars had an evil look, like emeralds and rubies, cursed by the high priest of a temple of long centuries ago.
Yes, Caribbean colors, so beautiful. Yes, Mark Gomez, having you with us was captivating. The fine art, literature, theater, cinema, everything reflects a society. That's what you show us as Guyanese, as a person who loves your roots, and we want to give you thanks to be part of Deep into a Caribbean book. I think that's it for now. Yes, thank you. Say, please, thank you, of course. You know, in the thesis I was mentioned previously, they said about Quarantine Thunder that this book is a tribute to the East Indian community. I think it's true. It's a memorable read.
Yes. Yes. Yes, very much so. That segment of our culture is a big part of Guyanese culture. It is one of the main strands of Guyanese culture. And another reason why the book is so extraordinary is that somebody from outside that culture understands it and knows it from the inside, because and to be able to write about it with such clarity, but still as an outsider, an inside outsider.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yes, thank you. It was nice. Once again, thank you all of you to be here, and see you next time. Bye, Mark. Cheers.